They go all home at night. They get up in the morning. The sacrifices that these men and women make, I think you made a mockery of them.
Come on, man.
Get on your feet.
Adulterio, through his conduct and his admissions, spanning from 1998 to this year, represents the worst that we can possibly expect from someone in our society.
Be seated, folks.
Meet Charlie Reeder, the former Pike County Sheriff, as he faces sentencing at the Pike County Courthouse in Waverly, Ohio. The reason for this court appearance is his admission of guilt to 2 counts: theft in office and tampering with evidence. This experienced law enforcement officer is accused of unlawfully taking around $5,000 that had been seized in previous cases. Shockingly, the money allegedly went towards supporting his gambling addiction. Initially, Reeder faced a daunting 18 charges, but by changing his plea to guilty, he managed to reduce that number to just 5. Now, he stands before Judge Patricia Cosgrove, awaiting his sentence for the crimes he has admitted to committing.
So this time we'll proceed with sentencing.
As Charlie Reeder faces the consequences of his actions, the maximum sentence he could receive for his crimes is 8 years behind bars. The courtroom atmosphere is tense as the defendant, visibly emotional, makes a heartfelt plea to the judge. He seeks the leniency of the court, asking for the minimum sentence possible: community service.
Your Honor, I stand here before you today to take accountability for my actions. As a sheriff of Ohio, I shed, I shed bad light on the office of sheriff. For this, I am terribly sorry. If I could go back and change it, I would 1,000,000 times.
With a heavy heart, Charlie Reeder expresses deep remorse for the crimes he committed. He pleads with the judge to take into account the profound impact a prison sentence would have on his family. In an emotional plea, he asks for understanding and compassion, hoping for a chance to make amends while remaining present for his loved ones.
I'm asking all this so that I have the opportunity to watch my son graduate from high school. My daughter, who's getting married in October, so that I can be there for her. And my wife, so that I can be a husband that I haven't been in 25 years due to my career. Your Honor, please do not send me to prison. I have roamed, but I'm not ruined. I still have a lot of good left in me. And thank you for your time.
Once the defendant concludes his plea, the judge has a single question to pose before the court.
The question I have, and is on everyone's mind, I'm assuming, is, I guess, why did you take the money?
I took the money, and mind you, this does not excuse it, but from drug dealers that took it from parents of very poor people in this county.
Reeder claims that a significant portion of the money he took was used to support charitable causes in the community. However, there's also evidence suggesting that he accumulated a substantial gambling debt. Unfortunately for Reeder, the judge doesn't seem to have much sympathy for his explanations and circumstances.
You've been in law enforcement for 24 years. We all choose our profession, and we have to conduct ourselves with integrity so that everyone trusts us. It cannot be underestimated the damage that you have caused to the citizens of Pike County, to law enforcement who every day get up, face the same sort of stresses that you do. They go all home at night, they get up in the morning. The sacrifices that these men and women make, I think you made a mockery of them.
As a result of his actions, Reeder receives a sentence totaling 6.5 years. However, some of the counts will run concurrently, which means they will be served simultaneously, resulting in Reeder only having to spend 3 years in prison. Additionally, he is prohibited from holding public office in Ohio and is no longer allowed to work as a peace officer. Meet Anthony Warlock, the individual at the center of a legal inquiry. He faced questioning in court due to the suspicion of assault. However, during the proceedings, a nearby deputy decided to intervene in an unexpected manner.
The investigation for false imprisonment, assault in the third degree, assault as a class 2 felony, and a misdemeanor charge as well in possession of drug paraphernalia.
I'd like to object first. If I'm under investigation, I thought the investigation came first, then the rest.
While Warlock was engaged in a conversation with the judge, an incident occurred involving the deputy. Fortunately, the observant judge promptly took action, leading to the deputy being taken into custody before any formal charges were filed. As a result, Warlock pursued a civil rights case, and he was awarded $50,000 as a settlement in the matter.
A former Fort Worth police officer received 5 years in prison for lying under oath. John Romer was found guilty in 2019 for making false statements to the grand jury about this 2016 confrontation when he punched a man in a hospital lobby.
Meet John Romer, a former police officer who once pledged to uphold the law but now finds himself behind bars on the other side of it. The culmination of his case brought him to court to face the consequences of his actions.
It is therefore the order, judgment, decree of this court that the defendant, John Preston Romer Jr., is hereby sentenced to 5 years confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department.
John Romer, the former police officer, was apprehended and taken into custody over 4 years after an incident in a hospital lobby, which was recorded by surveillance cameras. He was found guilty in 2019 of lying under oath about the events that took place that day. Now, he has been sentenced to 5 years in prison.
Couldn't have been a more severe aggravated perjury. All the lies that he told to cover up his excessive force.
John Romer was working in an off-duty capacity when he got into a physical altercation with a 20-year-old man named Henry Newson. Prosecutors recently reviewed the case before the judge announced Romer's punishment for committing perjury. During the incident, Newson borrowed a bystander's cell phone to call for a ride. The situation escalated, and Romer ended up taking Newson into custody. Romer had told a grand jury that he arrested Newson before resorting to physical force, but surveillance footage with audio proved otherwise. It showed that Romer's statement was false, leading to his perjury conviction.
Romer told him, if I let you go after having to throw you on the ground and hit you, then I'm in trouble. He didn't have to throw him on the ground and hit him. But he committed to a lie on that day, and we're here 4.5 years later, still dealing with it.
After the incident, the charges of trespassing and resisting arrest against Newson were eventually dropped. Romer's lawyer argued in favor of probation, claiming that the perjury case against him was baseless.
It's a case that has no bones. It has a case that has no substance. It's a case that has no materiality. The statement, you're under arrest, is not material to anything that was litigated in this courtroom. It's a complete jellyfish of a case.
You know, as a police officer, we fairly expect as citizens for you to be a person that upholds the law. And when you fall into making false statements.
Upon deliberation, the judge ruled that a 5-year prison sentence was fitting for this case.
Understand these rights, Mr. Romer. Sheriff, he's your prisoner.
Romer had the potential to receive a sentence of up to 10 years in prison. However, it remains uncertain if the state will proceed with the pending charges of official oppression, as any sentence for that would not exceed the one he received. Meet Joseph Roberts, the officer who pursued Trinity Clark as she was peacefully walking outside her home.
What's going on?
Nothing.
Okay.
What you want? I didn't do nothing. You tripping. Hey, bro, you tripping. What the Hey, bro. Bro, you took me out What's wrong with you?
$36.
Come on, mama. Move, I got no shirt on.
You're being detained.
Move! I don't got no shirt on, bitch! Move my out! You stupid ass bitch! Bruh, move my out, bitch! Move! Bitch, I'm not playing, bro! Bro, I don't got no shirt on, no! We fucked up!
Now you don't even know that serious. Don't come up here pulling your gun out, none of that. It ain't.
Get in the house! How about that?
Mama!
Bro, somebody call my mama.
36 Delta, get us some units up here. We got people coming to the house.
Trinity, what's your mama?
Yeah, I'm gonna turn.
Bro, move my out if y'all don't move.
Get your hands out.
No, I don't have no bro. Yo. Bro. Bro, let me go. I don't got no Mama. Mama. Mama, bro.
2816 Landon.
Oh, y'all better get DOC in the house. Okay, get the off of me, y'all. Bro, get off of me, y'all.
Put your hands on your back right now.
Bro, go.
Hands on your back. Put your hands on your back.
Not only did Roberts chase down Trinity Clark, but he was also found lying to his fellow officers about the incident. Fortunately, he chose to resign from the Knoxville Police Department and later pleaded guilty to the charges of destroying or tampering with records.
She pulls over really quick right here, steps out of the car and tries to run in the house. I told her to come here. She's not coming here. She's not coming to me. So I try to grab her. That's fine. You come here, mate.
Meet Eric DeValconaire, a former police officer from Kansas City. He faced the consequences of taking the life of a black man in 2019. The tragic incident happened as the victim was innocently backing his pickup truck into his own garage.
The court is further compelled to find beyond a reasonable doubt that when defendant shot and killed Cameron Lamb.
On December 3, 2019, a tragic shooting took place involving Eric DeValconaire and his partner in response to a traffic incident with a red pickup truck in Kansas City. The police had observed the truck entering a driveway at the rear of a home through a helicopter. Without a legal warrant, they approached the residents in plain clothes and police vests with their guns drawn. Upon arriving, they found the victim, Lamb, slowly backing the pickup truck into the basement garage. DeValconaire's partner had a clear view of Lamb at the time. The officers attempted to give commands to Lamb to stop, but it's uncertain whether he heard them. DeValconaire, believing he saw Lamb reaching for a gun and pointing it at his partner, fired 4 shots at Lamb. The tragic incident led to Lamb's death. Eric DeValconaire was handed down a verdict of 3 years in prison for the involuntary manslaughter of Cameron Lamb. Additionally, he received an extra 6 years for armed criminal actions.
County teenager killed getting off of his school bus. She's now demanding justice for the ex-cop who hit her son, and today a judge sentenced John Canfield to 35 years in prison.
You don't know the pain that you have caused.
Meet John Canfield, where an emotional scene unfolds in the courtroom as the parents of 13-year-old Jaheim Robertson finally speak up, shedding tears during their testimony.
In court,
My son was mowed down and killed by John Canfield, an ex-cop who chose to drink your sorrows away and then get me.
Investigators have reported that John Cam Fields was driving with a blood alcohol level that was twice the legal limit when he struck 5 students from Dundee Ridge Middle Academy who were walking near their bus stop.
Screaming, saying, "Daddy, help me, Daddy, help me."
An off-duty Polk County deputy, who is also a father, took it upon himself to chase after the suspect. Jonathan Quintana, a witness to the incident where the group of school children was hit, recalled seeing Campfield stumbling and shared his thoughts about the situation.
Advise your daughter.
Campfield claims that he suffered a medical episode, explaining that a liver issue led to him blacking out.
Way of controlling the events that occurred on April 27th. I had not been drinking at all that day.
Campfield's license was permanently revoked by the judge, and he was sentenced to jail, possibly for the rest of his life. Meet William Melendez, a police officer who faced Judge Vonda Evans for sentencing after being found guilty of beating a suspect. Judge Evans didn't hold back in delivering her sentence.
I thought this. What crime did I commit? Being a black man in a Cadillac, stopped for a minor traffic offense by a group of racist police officers looking to do an. As Police Officer John Zelenowski, auxiliary police officer, testified in court too, in his response to a text, was quoted as saying, "At least give me the satisfaction of knowing that you're out there beating up right now. LOL. How humiliating and degrading that must have been." He was left in a cell for a number of hours before getting medical treatment. But after hearing the defendant and his fellow officers joke about his injuries as they were wiping blood off their uniforms with disinfectant. 2015. Please be quiet in my courtroom. How does this happen? I'm gonna tell you how it happened. You betrayed your city. You caused your lovely wife heartache. And you caused Mr. Dent severe anguish. And finally, in the words of Vicki Yost, your commander, accountability is required to ensure continued community trust and healing.
This is Michael Dotro, a former police officer from Edison who carried out a series of vengeful plots against fellow officers whom he believed had crossed him during his time on the force. He was arrested for intentionally setting fire to his supervisor's residence. Dotro was facing multiple charges during his arraignment, including attempted murder, aggravated arson, official misconduct, conspiracy to tamper with a witness, and conspiracy to retaliate. The attempted murder and arson charges were related to an incident on May 23, 2013, when Dotro used 2 containers filled with gasoline to ignite his supervisor's home. Thankfully, although the property suffered significant damage, no injuries were reported as the supervisor, his wife, 2 children, and 92-year-old mother were present in the house. During the nearly hour-long trial, Dotro chose to remain completely silent as the judge shared her thoughts on the matter.
This individual has done, because of him and people like him, victims are afraid to come forward to be part of the criminal justice system.
Apart from the attempted murder and arson charges, Michael Dotro has been entangled in other legal issues in recent years. He faced an official misconduct case, where he was accused of accessing police records and sharing information with his wife regarding a tire slashing incident involving a woman he was allegedly involved with. Dotro also admitted to pleading guilty to conspiracy charges, acknowledging that he sought revenge against a North Brunswick police officer who had issued a drunk driving ticket to someone else. These incidents show that Dotro is not one to wait for divine justice. He takes matters into his own hands.
But what he's really done, and what we're going to be left with after he's walking out the door, to spend the next third of his life in prison.
Michael Dotro received multiple sentences for the crimes he committed. He was sentenced to 20 years for attempted murder, 10 years for aggravated arson, 10 years for official misconduct, 5 years for conspiracy to tamper with a witness, and 18 months for conspiracy to retaliate. The important thing to remember is that all these prison terms will be served concurrently. This means that he will serve the longest sentence, which is 20 years, and the other sentences will be served at the same time as the 20-year term.
I haven't been away from my kids for more than a day, and since being incarcerated, I miss Christmas, I miss my little Sabrina's birthday, I missed my Kylie the Rose ride at high school, which I was practicing.
Meet Sean Corder, a 35-year-old police officer from the Bloomfield Police Department who is facing a series of charges. These charges include conspiracy to commit official misconduct, tampering with public records, falsifying public records, and false swearing. One incident that led to these charges occurred on June 7, 2012, when Corder responded to a call at Marcus Jeter's home after a dispute between Jeter and his girlfriend. Jeter voluntarily left the scene, but Corder followed him onto the Garden State Parkway and pulled him over. Despite Corder's attempts to get Jeter out of his car, Jeter refused, expressing concern for his safety. More officers arrived at the scene to provide backup, but unfortunately, their vehicle collided with the front of Jeter's car. In the midst of the chaos, Corder broke the window of Jeter's car and, with the help of his colleagues, forcibly removed Jeter from the vehicle. After the incident, the officers involved filed police reports claiming that Jeter had tried to take Corder's firearm and had assaulted one of the backup officers. Based on these reports, Jeter faced charges of eluding, resisting arrest, aggravated assault, and attempting to disarm a police officer. However, new evidence came to light, leading the prosecutor to drop all charges against Marcus Jeter. This also triggered an investigation into the officer's actions, and as a result, they were indicted by a grand jury. Before his sentencing, Officer Corder had the opportunity to address the judge at the Essex County Courthouse, where he shared his thoughts and statements.
My children more than anything in the world, and I know they need me. I don't want them to have to suffer, switch schools, lose friends, lose the house that they're raised in.
Marcus Jeter, the victim in this case, bravely stood before the courthouse and offered his thoughts and perspective on Sean Corder and the entire harrowing ordeal.
He chose to say that I resisted. He had a choice. I'm not saying that that messes his character up. I'm not saying that he's not a good guy. I'm just saying that in a situation like this where he has an obligation, a moral obligation to tell the truth, he chose not to.
Sean Corder, the former Bloomfield police officer, has been found guilty of official misconduct and tampering with records. As a consequence, he received a 5-year prison sentence from Essex County Superior Court Judge Michael Raven.
Now at 5:30, it was sentencing day for a police officer who was convicted of attacking a male nurse at Jackson Memorial Hospital. That attack happened back in May of last year. That officer was fired for that incident. He had been with the Miami Police Force for more than 20 years.
And now he has to pay the price for slamming the nurse to the...
Meet Lester Bonenblust, a 51-year-old individual who has been found guilty of assaulting a male nurse at Jackson Memorial Hospital. The incident involved Bonenblust's niece, who was dealing with mental health issues, being discharged from the hospital. Her father wanted her readmitted, but the medical professionals determined it wasn't necessary and suggested scheduling a follow-up appointment. Bonenblust's brother, who was also a fellow officer, accompanied the father to the hospital. The nurse explained that he couldn't discuss the patient's situation in a public area, so he took them to a private spot. However, things took a violent turn when Bonenblust grabbed the nurse's jacket and forcefully threw him to the ground. The hospital's surveillance video captured the whole incident, showing Bonenblust grabbing the nurse from behind. The nurse immediately responded, demanding that he let go. As a consequence of his actions, Bonenblust was charged with battery against a person over 65 years old and false imprisonment. After serving for 20 years, Bonenblust was discharged from the police force due to the incident.
1, battery on a person 65 years of age or older, and guilty on 1 count of false imprisonment.
Meet James Nicholson, the 66-year-old nurse who went through the traumatic incident. Nicholson, who is now retired because of a knee injury, shared his account of what happened during that eventful day.
To the point where I was yelling at the top of my lungs, help, help. What happened to me that day should not happen to anybody, especially a healthcare worker.
During the court session on Friday, emotions ran high among Bonenblust's family members as Judge Marissa Tinkler-Mendez from Miami-Dade County revealed the sentence. Bonenblust was given a 45-day jail term, and once released, he will be placed on 3 years of probation. As part of his sentence, he also has to complete 100 hours of community service.
Tears in court during sentencing for the former police officer who shot and killed Corey Jones.
Meet Newman Raja, a police officer convicted on 2 serious charges: manslaughter by culpable negligence and attempted first-degree murder with a firearm. His arrest came after the fatal shooting of Corey Jones, a 31-year-old musician and housing inspector. Jones had pulled over on a highway, waiting for help when the tragic incident occurred. The case garnered widespread media attention, as it was sadly one of many similar incidents involving the deaths of black men at the hands of law enforcement officers. Loved ones of Corey Jones shared touching tributes to him and voiced their dismay over the ongoing issue of police brutality faced by their community.
This should have never happened. My uncle should still be with us alive.
During the trial, the prosecutors presented evidence from the incident on August 18, 2015. Officer Raja, dressed in plain clothes and on duty, came across what he believed was an abandoned vehicle on the side of the road at around 3:15 a.m. Approaching the car, he had a brief interaction with the occupant, Mr. Corey Jones, who was actually waiting for roadside assistance. It later emerged that Mr. Jones had a legally obtained handgun with him. Officer Raja claimed that Mr. Jones pointed the gun at him, but the prosecution argued that he fired his weapon even as Mr. Jones was trying to flee. In a matter of moments, Officer Raja fired 6 shots, 3 of which struck Mr. Jones, resulting in his tragic death. After carefully considering the case, the judge delivered a statement and sentenced Officer Raja to 25 years for each of the 2 charges. These sentences would be served concurrently, meaning Officer Raja would serve both at the same time.
On count 1, I hereby sentence him to 25 years in the Department of Corrections. And on count 2, I hereby sentence Mr. Raja to 25 years in the Department of Corrections.
Meet Todd Pay, a former sheriff who found himself in a troubling situation. He faced several charges, including serving under the influence, and had a difficult time admitting guilt when standing before the judge.
At this time, is it your desire to change your plea from not guilty to guilty?
Do I have to answer that yes or no, or can I make somewhat of a statement that's
That is a yes or no answer, sir.
Will I have the opportunity to say anything further?
If it is your intention to change your plea from not guilty to guilty, certainly you'll have an opportunity to make any statement. But if it is not your intent to enter a guilty plea at this time, then I'm going to set your case for jury trial, and you're going to stop wasting my time and everybody else's time this afternoon.
Ma'am, I'm not trying to waste your time.
And then is it your intention to enter a guilty plea at this time or not, sir?
No. Why am I wasting your time,
Mr. Chambers?
Despite repeated attempts to get a response from the corrupt cop, the judge eventually ignores him and shifts the focus to the prosecutor, calling for a recess.
Intention of coming in here today and entering a guilty plea. It's difficult for me to enter a guilty plea for a lot of reasons, and I don't want this court to think that I am trying to minimize any responsibility that I had in this situation. I feel like I'm being very much bullied into doing something that's not right. And I want this court to know that Todd Pate holds himself responsible for everything that he did. It's hard for me to lay down and plead to felony charges that don't apply.
Is it your intention today to enter this guilty plea?
And if I could address...
This is either a yes or no. Are you going to enter your plea or not?
I guess everybody thinks it's funny. Let me just plea and get it over with for everybody. Plead to something that I absolutely do not feel good about, but I don't want you to try to send me to the penitentiary for years and years. Probably
I think
unusual,
we're done.
but
At
let's
this
do
point in
it.
time, I think we're done. Where I think we are today is that on the one hand, the Commonwealth can enforce the terms of this agreement based on the execution. Mr. Pate, I'm talking at this point in time.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
At this point in time, I'm going to sustain the Commonwealth's motion to revoke his bond. He will be taken into the custody and housed in the Breckinridge County Jail.
Your Honor, if I may speak to Mr. Chambers' motion to revoke the bond.
I've already ruled. I've already ruled at this point in time.
Ma'am.
We're done at this point in time. He's going into jail today.
After some time, he finally admitted guilt and received a sentence of 75 days in the county jail.